to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Mr. Javier Perez. We are in Houston's East End. Great weather, by the way, Javier.
Oh, yeah.
Great weather.
If you're a sponge.
We're going to talk today about unions. Communication workers. The Union for Communication Workers is here today, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of unions. As you all know, Houston is a big city for unions, and we look forward to the discussion. But first, we're going to talk about current events for the first 10 minutes. So
Let's get to it, man.
You know better than I do, we have some serious soccer fans here in Houston.
My God, I've never seen it like this before. I mean, America has just embraced soccer, which is, it's kind of great to see because the rest of the world, you know, embraces soccer, and for us to get on and we're really doing well. So I think it's fantastic.
You know, I see the surge of people that are interested in soccer nowadays.
Yeah.
Let's think about 20 years ago. How many people would have been really watching the game yesterday?
None.
You know,
hardly any.
So the reality is there's been a big surge, and this is a world sport. I mean, everybody's into soccer, except we're kind of lagging behind a little bit. So hopefully we can catch up. And I tell you what, I was very proud of our team despite their tie.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, soccer is the only sport where you could tie and still come out ahead. You know, so it's great. I think that the country's really embracing it, and man, it's great to see. It's great to see it. I tell you one thing: soccer is a great sports bar sport.
Sure.
You don't really go to sports bars that, you know, for the Super Bowl or, you know, things like that. But it's get up there with basketball for sports bars. You know, I heard one person say that, you know, if you have a sports bar and it's not full right now, he said you might as well close your doors. I said, because you can't get people in the seats now. He says it's not going to happen.
Well, Mexico played today, by the way. They played against Croatia.
Absolutely.
They won 3-1.
3-1, yeah. Look at Mexico.
So all the Mexican fans, I'm sure they are having a field day today.
Oh man, I tell you.
Well, Thursday, the U.S. will play Germany. Now, that's going to be the game right there.
Yeah.
Germany is ranked #1. No, so we're going to be playing against the top team, okay, the top team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
No, on all these scenarios, you know, if so-and-so wins or so-and-so ties, I think all we have to do is tie Germany to go into the next round.
I want to see how many people call in sick on Thursday because the game's at 11 o'clock. 11 a.m. So it'll be interesting. Let's go on to some other topics now. We have some bad news and some good news. They had a funeral home that was receiving bodies. I guess the immigration, the ones that were caught illegally crossing, immigration passed on the dead bodies to one particular funeral home in Falfurrias. And what they were doing was dumping these bodies into a mass grave, thinking that nobody was going to check on them. They didn't want to spend the money to do what they had to do with those bodies.
That is
52 bodies, okay?
That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe they thought they would get away with that.
Well, I can tell you they're under the spotlight now. And I hope they get what's coming to them because they deserve whatever's coming to them.
That is just so terrible for those. I mean, those families are, I mean, just going through all that stress all over again.
That's correct.
Yes. I mean, it's just inhumane for them to do something like that.
I would agree. And let's talk about another incident. Today in the Chronicle, actually all over the news in Houston, they were talking about an 8-month-old baby that was taken at 1 a.m. from a gasoline station while the mom went inside to the store. Somebody jumped in the car and took off. Now, the 8-month-old baby was found this morning by a jogger, fortunately. This person just happened to be jogging in the right place at the right time. Now, let's just say worst case scenario, if that jogger was not there, what would have happened?
I can't believe it would just, you know, oh, I got a baby in the car. Let me just leave this car on the main highway and get the heck out of there. I mean, that person, they really need to go after that person because, I mean, for them to take the baby out of a car and put it off a jogging trail, a million bad things could have happened to that poor child.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate.
Well, they need to go after that guy.
Yeah, and they do have a sketch of the guy that did it, and it's going to be all over the news tonight, I'm sure. They're looking for you in case you're watching. They're looking for you. So I hope they catch him.
Our viewers wouldn't do anything like that. I don't think so, Ben.
No?
No.
Another thing in the news, there was a couple that was fishing out in the Florida Keys, and apparently they fell off the boat, and they swam, or literally floated, I should say, for 16 hours in the
75
water.
miles up the coast.
75 miles from the point of origin. So they literally floated 75 miles from where they were. Can you believe that?
I want to know who fell out first, who dragged who out the boat, and what they talked about. Say, because of you, I'm out here to go. I'm probably going to drown.
You know, the good thing the sharks didn't eat them.
Oh yeah, here they got some jellyfish stings.
Come on.
But that's nothing.
Compared to losing a couple limbs or even going down with a shark, that's nothing. I'll tell you what, they need to go gamble.
I tell you, Ben, if that was me and you fill out the boat. Gamble. I just, hey, I'll be back. I see you in a little bit.
Let's talk about another case. They have doctors in South Texas that are refusing to take vets in, refusing to give them care because VA is not giving them their money fast enough.
So are these VA doctors?
Well, I'm not sure how that all works. All I know is that there's some doctors that are in the valley that are refusing to take these patients because it takes too long for them to get paid.
Well, I think that's another issue for the Veterans Administration.
I agree.
Why aren't they paying these doctors?
I agree, but I'll tell you what, I'm not saying anything bad against the VA, but what I am saying bad is, why is it the doctors are not taking care of our vets? I mean, come on, guys. You have an obligation to take care of people, okay? Just because of the money, is that why you're not taking it? Come on.
Well, you know, that's the way a lot of the doctors are these days.
I know that, but it's a shame.
Oh, absolutely, Ben. You know, they don't take the public health type patients because it takes too long for them to get paid. You know, welfare recipients and other like SSI, they won't take it because it takes too long, and that's ridiculous. You know, but
totally
you know, I feel for the doctors. You know, but, you know, why do they get into what they're doing? Hopefully it wasn't just because of the big money.
Well, obviously.
There's a lot of doctors out there that are just doing it from the heart, you know, and that's fantastic. But you know, I mean, we have such a boondoggle with the VA. I mean, it's hard to place blame. You place it on the VA, what's going on. Well, actually, you can blame the VA. You know, how can you get this streamlined so that this doesn't happen? You know, that's the whole crux of the problem right there.
Let's go on to another topic. Our friend from the far, far, far right, Senator Ted Cruz, and his friend Greg Abbott are in South Texas. As you know, ICE has taken in a lot of kids lately. Yeah. There's been a lot of crossings by what I call they're under 18 children without parents, okay? 52,000 kids. Oh, that's a lot of kids. Wow. In the last few months. And obviously something's broken. Whatever happened, this great influx of kids that have come to the United States, there's something going on there. And so apparently Senator Ted Cruz and Mr. Greg Abbott went out there and they saw for themselves with their own eyes how these kids are being incarcerated, because that's basically what it comes down to. They're being incarcerated. And so you have these rooms full of kids and they're sleeping all over the floors. Now, I don't know what the solution is, but I tell you what, we do have a problem.
So any great sound bites from our great senator?
Our right senator? Well, I haven't heard anything. I just read this off the Chronicle, so this is news to me as well.
I tell you, Ben, that is a big problem, and a lot of these kids are just trying to follow their parents. Well, they want to find their parents.
Well, there's a problem here, and I'll tell you what. One of the main problems is that when there are kids involved, the law is very lenient, so nothing happens to them. If they're adults, it's a different story. So when you're talking to kids, you know, you're talking about a slap on the hand, and so they go and they come, they go and they come, and nothing happens to them. So that's something that I'm sure the legislators are going to be looking at.
I'll tell you, it's stand by for more facts on this one, man.
Yeah.
Because that story's going to keep coming at us.
And the U.S. Congress, I'm sure they're aware of the issues at hand, because Congressman Henry Cuellar has made a big issue about this, and he's invited all the congressmen to the border towns to see what's going on for themselves. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the near future.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
All right, now we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Communication Workers of America. And we have the president, the ultimate president, Mr. Steve Flores.
El Presidente.
El Presidente. Steve Flores is with us. So join us in 2 minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. Now we're going to talk to the Communication Workers of America. And today we have our president, Mr. Steve Flores. Thank you, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me here.
I see you have some guests. Tell us who they are.
Well, this young lady next to me is Evelyn Smith. She's my secretary-treasurer. She's been a union member for quite some time, because I'm not going to give you her age, or my second guest, which is Judy Garrett, which is was a district steward for the operators, and is currently the executive board member that represents the operators. And why I sort of really asked you if we could come on is to talk about jobs in America, jobs with the communication workers, just jobs in general, and why I believe that so many people in America just ain't waking up to realize how many jobs are being exported out of the country. And yeah, we're losing manufacturing jobs to overseas and other places, but we're losing a lot of jobs. Anything that can be done on a telephone or on a computer can be done from anywhere in the world. You pick up the phone and ask for service, chances are you're getting India or the Philippines or Thailand or whatever. And so operator services here in the 5 states, which was formerly Southwestern Bell, it really still is Southwestern Bell. Southwestern Bell still owns what is now AT&T.
And I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah. Well, if I represent a lot of people, then usually because they've gotten in trouble, when we sign some kind of agreement or settlement, at the very bottom it says Southwestern Bell Inc. So even though it says AT&T all over it, the real owner of the company is Southwestern Bell. They're the ones that bought out all the other baby bells, and like Pactel, Ameritech. What was Pactel and Ameritech and Bell South and even AT&T? But they adopted the AT&T name because that's a worldwide brand that they didn't know who Southwestern Bell, that became SBC and all that.
Right.
So,
Steve, why don't you give us maybe a little background on the union itself? How long ago? How many? How big was it? And where's it at now?
Let me say this. I wish I could tell you where it was a long time ago, it's where it is now is probably about 700,000. Is my that belong to CWA nationwide, but that's made up of more than just communication workers. Like the United Airlines flight attendants, they're also with CWA. The Texas State Employees Union belongs to CWA. So it's more than just communication workers. At one point in time, it was just communication workers, and then they started merging with each other because in America there was 37% of America was unionized at one time. They were organized. They belonged to some union in America. There were cities and states that were almost completely unionized. I mean, just everybody belonged to some kind of union. But in recent years, we're sort of a victim of our own success. We got big contracts, and our members made more and more money, and then started living in better neighborhoods, moved into the upper class neighborhoods up into the suburbs, and just started thinking that maybe they weren't blue collar workers anymore, and started voting for candidates that were really not in their best interests.
Wow, man, that's a strong observation there.
So we lost a lot of power, and then they started thinking, well, we really don't need a union. Like some of the grocery stores, nearly all the grocery store chains, the ones of the old times, were all unionized. Now Kroger's is the only unionized store, so of course we ask all our members to support Kroger's because that's the only union store left probably in Texas.
But let's talk about unions in general.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people would say, well, why do I want to join your union when basically I'm covered by HR? HR is going to protect me. So why would I join a union?
Well, because HR is not going to protect you. They're going to protect the company. And sort of like even in a union company, HR has their own EEOC in case you have a complaint to make it because someone mistreated you for being black or Catholic or gay or whatever. But if you call the company EEOC, chances are all they're going to be doing is figuring out how to get the company out of trouble if they think there's really something there. We tell our members, you really probably ought to call the Mickey Leland building and get to the real EEOC, because those people that you're making your complaint to are just managers with the phone company, and that's how most companies are. Is their HRs are there to protect the company and their assets. That's right. And the difference between a union worker and a non-union worker is that you're considered an employee at will when you don't belong to a union. And
explain that to the viewers.
An employee is at will means that the company can walk in and terminate your employment just because. They don't have to have just cause. In a union, they have to prove that there was a reason to fire you. In an at-will employee, they can just walk in and say, here's your pink slip and we don't need your services no more. Don't have to explain themselves or nothing. Don't as long as they don't do it because your race, color, ethnic background, religion, or none of that, then there won't be in violation of any labor laws. So you don't have a contract, so that means they can just walk you out if you've been there 1 year or 20 years. They can keep the 1 year guy and get rid of the 20-year guy. And in a union like ours, you do it by seniority. Last hired, first fired. If you're the junior person, well, you're going to go first before the senior person.
I tell you, Steve, I know we've known each other a lot of years. And I remember one time going to my mom's house, and there was a Southwestern Bell truck pulled up to the pole. And I look up, and who do I see? I see Steve working on the phone line up there. Steve, what are you doing up there. I said, man, I got to work like everybody else. So actually, all the union representatives come from the rank and file. Is that right?
Absolutely. You know, there's a stigma that, you know, that big union bosses are nothing but mafia guys and all that, you know. And I think back in the early days, the 20s or whatever, when it started, it was something like that. But that's now it's just people that climb telephone poles or answered telephones or whatever. Evelyn was an operator when she first hired on. Most of the ladies that work with the company are operators. It wasn't until like 73, 74 till they started letting ladies take craft jobs and come to the field and do what we do. We got ladies climbing poles and fixing phones just like men and making Group 1 craft pay. And let me say this, we had people that we called a repairman. As a repairman, I would call and say, you know, I need this phone line tested. It was a test deskman. Well, they were Group 1 craft too. As soon as we made the company start letting ladies get that job, they renamed the title and lowered the wage. And let me say this, why I brought Judy and even Evelyn is because she hired on as an operator. Judy retired as an operator. Well, in Texas, we probably had about 30,000+ operators at one time. In Houston, we had 12 operating units. That means 12 separate buildings that held anywhere from like 150 to 300 or so operators in it. And it was a 24/7 job, right? I mean, anytime you picked up the phone and needed an operator, there was one there to answer the phone. And I want them to sort of tell you what the working conditions were like back when they hired on. And so then that way we can tell you what they lifted themselves up from there, because when these two ladies hired on, they were paying less than $2 an hour. So what were some of the things that y'all remember that y'all had to overcome?
Well, the one thing that I can truly remember, first off, when I hired on, and I hired on in Rosenberg, Texas. That's the town I'm from. And it was a very small unit. One of the major things that we had was time off. We did not have any time off. We had mostly work 6-7 days a week.
So
Now,
this
was the job unionized then?
Yes, it was
And
unionized.
you were union and you didn't have any time off?
Oh, we were on mandatory overtime.
Wow.
So you were
just-
working for Southwestern Bell at the
Yes.
time? Okay.
Yes, it was mandatory overtime. It was just strange. You know, I had a tour, was 8 at night until 2 in the morning, and that's what I drew for New Year's. And I was like, oh, okay then, you know, well, Happy New Year to everybody, and it's fun. But that was one of the major things to overcome, was the amount of work that we had, even with the amount of units that we had working. You know, I worked in a unit that when I took my calls from overseas, or I took my calls down to Mexico, you know, we had to send runners. We had to do all of the things back in the day to get the job done. And you had to understand a certain amount of everything, regardless of what nationality you were. You had to understand a certain amount of everything in order to get the job done, because it was just crucial at this particular time that we do everything that we needed to do.
And what year did you start, Evelyn?
I started in '69.
Wow.
But how did they treat you there? How strict were they with you guys?
Well, I worked in a unit with, you know, when I walked in and I knew that my chief operator and everybody was calling her aunt so-and-so, that I knew that she was an aunt, and there were her nieces and nephews, and that we weren't going to get too much. After that, you know, I was going, oh, they are her nieces, so they are going to get top priority over that. So I didn't get we didn't get the treatment on tours that we thought that we could have gotten based on that, you know.
But like I heard that y'all, like restroom breaks and things like that, they were real hard on y'all.
Oh, yeah.
And like you couldn't talk to someone next to you, or
No, just hold it.
and
You couldn't talk to your fellow employees?
No,
Well,
no,
That doesn't even make any sense.
no, but you couldn't. It was very strict. You could not talk. You just came in, plugged in, took your call, take your break on time, take your lunch on time, get off on time. You just leave the room because they had people walking the floor. It was a very large room. It was people plugged in on both sides of the room, and they had people walking the floor all day that you were there. They made sure that you did not talk. They observed on you, which means they listened to you, talking to your customers to make sure that you're doing the right thing.
I don't know about you, Javi, but that sounds like a prison. You know how they have the little cubicles?
That's exactly how it was.
I would put that job right next to making license plates.
so remember that they were making around $2 an hour.
Right.
And they also how many calls were you required to take, you know, to keep a job?
Well, 20 seconds per call. So you take a call every 20 seconds.
So they
and
were
you
timing
have,
you.
you're timed. You're timed.
And they were monitoring.
And they were monitored.
And you got pulled in when you did not make the requirement
Right.
that you know, they came in and wrote.
So I was just curious, how does that work? Does a light flash up on your screen and you have to take the call, or?
Well, when it was cardboard, yes.
Okay.
But now it's all electronic. It comes to you. The system is set up that the call goes to the next available operator.
Okay.
So it's very fast. It's very fast.
Now back when you two started, how many operators were there? Because I can't think of the last time I talked to an operator.
You call what? 411? Who do you call?
No, usually I just call direct.
Just dial zero.
Yeah.
You would dial zero.
Yeah, dial zero to
You
call
would
an
get an operator. But that operator was evenly divided. It was zero, which was toll, and the one with information was called DA. So in each office, it was probably 700 to 800 operators or more.
So is that one of the jobs that has been decreasing?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Oh, yes.
And let me, at the peak in America, it was 240,000 operators, 241,000 operators. And then it started dropping and dropping and dropping. And then it's in the 80s it got down to a little over 100,000 operators in America. And in the 5 states there was probably about, I would say about 35. The 5 states of Southwestern Bell was about 35 to 40,000 operators, and most of them in Texas. And when we closed down the unit last Monday here in Houston, that was the last operating unit in the 5 states. So I asked the national to tell me, how many operators do we actually have in America now? And I'm not counting just the ones with AT&T, all operators. And they're saying we're down to about 3,000 out of over 240,000 operators. They're down to around
Now,
3,000.
is this because of automation, or are these jobs being shipped overseas?
Let me say this. Some of it has to do with automation, because you call 1411, you give them what you're gonna. It's a computer that answers, right?
City and state.
and then they'd say city and state, and you give it to them. Chances are you're gonna get the robot to answer you. But if they can't understand what you're trying to say or whatever, then they'll ship you to an operator, and that operator was taking calls every 20 seconds. So somebody was calling, right? They were taking calls they were, in order to keep their job, they were having to take a call and average every 20 seconds. Some would last over 20 seconds, some would last less than 20 seconds, but they had to at least average 20 seconds, or else at the end of the month they'd be called in, right? And they were charging $2.99.
Yeah,
$2.99 a call.
as of today.
That's what they're charging today. Think about that. Imagine having 100 people taking 3 calls a minute, right? At $3 a call, that's $9. How many minutes are there in an hour? So you're talking about some big dollars.
Somebody's making some money.
Somebody's making some money, but that also drove our customer base out. I mean, once I got my bill for a phone call like that, then I probably was going to try and do something else other than call the operators, right? And so I believe this is my opinion, is that they actually drove us out of the business so they could come back one day for a lot less, because these ladies work for around $2 an hour, and today in our contract they're at $24 an hour. And you know, big corporations, even though our CEO makes, you know, probably about $50 million in total compensation, $27 million in just pay, but then they get their stock options and all this other stuff, right? And even though he's making that kind of money, really don't believe these ladies deserve the money they're making. So why not drive it out of the business for a while and then bring it back under non-union or ship it out? Because we caught them already shipping it out of the country because it's too easy to do. It's too easy to do. The network is there. It's not like they got to invest in upgrading the network so they could do this work. It's there. You just pick up the phone, you're anywhere in the world, and asking anything you want to do, and we're having to compete. Like right now, they got 22,000 jobs in the Philippines. If you got UVerse, that's who. If you got a problem with it, that's who you're going to get most of the time, is the Philippines. And how do you compete with somebody that's making less than $40 a week?
Let's talk about the breakdown of the United States. So you mentioned 5 states AT&T, Southwestern Bell have, right? Do they have more than those 5 states?
Well, the Pactel is California and Nevada, I believe.
So how many companies are we talking that are in charge of certain states overall?
No, AT&T's over all of that.
Okay.
But then there's the AT&T, you know, then there's Quest, there's Verizon, and there's a whole lot of little companies. What's this one in Humble? I can't think of it. It's under CWA too.
So there's multiple.
Oh, there's still like Sprint and others.
The reason why I'm
Cricket,
asking,
is
yeah.
that?
Well, those
AT&T.
are wireless, and actually AT&T has
Owns
bought out Cricket.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking is because I wanted to know the hierarchy between the companies. So you have AT&T is, I guess, the mothership, if you will, and then you have all these companies underneath them. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Well, they do have some companies underneath them, but they own. There's no more Pactel. Pactel is gone. It's all AT&T, and it's really all Southwestern Bell. Southwestern Bell owns.
Southwestern Bell ended up buying all
Buying
the
them all
little
out.
baby bells.
That's right.
Yeah.
They bought all the baby bells and AT&T. You remember they broke up AT&T.
That's right. They broke it up.
Because it was
too
a
big.
monopoly,
Yeah.
right? Come on now.
We're back.
That was planned from day one.
They're just
That they were going to come back one day. It was all to
a
bust.
wolf with a different coat.
Busting. Well, because they said that it was going to drive down. It was going to create competition and drive down the cost of telecommunications. You paying 10 times whatever it was you were doing back then, because now everybody's got a phone. Your kids got a phone. If you got someone working in your yard, they got a phone. If someone's cleaning your house, they got a phone. You got a phone. Mama got a phone. All the kids got their own phones, and they all are charging something. So believe me, the telecommunications companies are making billions and billions of dollars, and they're want to drive the wages down, but just not in the telecommunications industry. You see where, you know, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poor. They're doing away with the middle class, and so that's why I'm saying, please, America, wake up, because your job's at stake. Maybe not today, but it's going to be you tomorrow. Just like that that quote from a guy that said that they came from me. They came for the Jews, and they came for the Polish people, and they came for the Catholics, and finally one day someone came for him. And I'm telling you, just about no one has a retirement plan no more. No one, you look in those buildings in downtown Houston and see all them high rises, no, almost not a worker in there has a retirement plan anymore unless they have a 401k. And then you're subject to the stock market and flip a coin and
Let's
hope
talk
you
about
make it.
pensions, because you have the fire department that has their own union, you have the police department, and then you have the city, they have their own employee union. And so what do you say to those people that say, you know, we can't even pay our pensions because of the contract negotiations that go behind the scenes with these unions? What do you say to that?
Well, that's not why they can't pay the pensions. I believe is because they've mismanaged the funds and stuff. The people responsible. Remember, a lot of the pensions were fully funded until 2008, and the stock market went to hell in a handbasket because they were all in those stocks, and they just collapsed. So they lost all that money, and now they're taking it out on these firefighters and others. And let me say this, and the firefighters and other public sector workers, especially in Houston and I don't know about all over Texas, they deliberately took less pay so that they could get it when they retired in their golden days. When they gave their best days, those 25 or 30 years, their best days in this world, you know, they said at the end they'd be taken care of, so they took less money. And now the city and even at the state level, they want to, you know, raid their pensions and all that. And I just say that that's a shame. You know, you made a promise to these people, and you need to keep it. Now, the younger ones coming on, you need to make them a different promise. You need to work something out differently. Well, do that. But the ones that are given their 15, 20, and 30 years, you made them a promise, and you need to stick to it. What happened that a man's word was his bond? I know my dad told me a man is only as good as his word, and if his word's no good, then he ain't worth a damn either. Yeah. And let me tell you, most of
old school, baby.
Most of these corporate people, you know, their word ain't no good. Let me tell you, my bill mailing group, and they're not here. I invited them to come, but they didn't come. But my bill mailing group was just informed last week they're shutting them down and moving their work, and they told them they're moving it to Sacramento, California. Well, these are all good old Texas, you know, born and raised people, and they said they ain't going to California. Again, California's a nice place, but they ain't going there. So they're
I would go to California.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
no self-respecting Texan would go to California.
That's right.
Anyway, but the vice president of their department.
Now this is the bill mailing?
Bill mailing. That's who sends out all the bills nationwide. There's only 2 union places in America for AT&T that's doing it, but they opened up a non-union plant in Georgia. And now what they sat there in front of those people that have given, some of them close to 40 years with the company, and told them to their face with a straight face and says, oh, we're sending your work to California. That's the only reason why. And you're going to get to follow your work if you want to. But then they came and started taking down the machines and packing them up. And so I said, hey, where y'all taking our machines to? They said, we're taking them to Georgia, to that non-union place where they're paying them probably half the wages and poor working conditions, no health benefits, because they're probably all contractors, right? They want everybody to be a contractor so that they really don't have an employee, really, you know, so that they're responsible for.
There's a number on the bottom of your screen if you would like to participate in this discussion. You call in that number. It's live television. So you'll be talking to the man right here if you have any questions. We're going to be back in about 2 minutes. Join us for Latino Talk TV. You have anything else, Javier?
We'll see you in 2.
We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, being joined today by Mr. Javier Perez as our co-host. And we're talking today to the Communication Workers of America. And we have our president, Mr. Steve Flores. We're going to talk politics now. Mr. Steve, I know you guys are heavily entrenched in the political arena here in Houston, and I'm sure all over the United States. Let's talk about some key races that are going on for this coming November. As you know, we have the governor's race, and we have two contenders that pretty much they're going to take all the votes, and we also have a lieutenant governor's race coming up. So let's talk about how that impacts you all.
Well, it does matter. Politics does matter for working people, not just labor unions, just working people in general. It depends who you elect is going to have your back or have the corporations back, and we tend to support the Democrats, and we'll be supporting Wendy and Leticia because they have proven to us that they're watch the back of the working people, whether they be in the union or not. They're watching the back of working people. If you get injured on the job today, this has got to be one of the worst states in America. I'm not going to say it's the worst one because I'm not sure about that, but it's one of the worst ones in America to get hurt in, because workman's comp is terrible here. And it's terrible because of the legislators and the legislation. They're pro-big business. You end up going to Concenture, or maybe I shouldn't mention the places they take you, because you can't go to your own doctor. They take you to their doctors. Just like the old days, we used to say the company doctor. And I've had guys that went and had to get their knee, a complete rebuild of their knee, and then they're not given any rehabilitation sign and sent to work climbing telephone poles with a knee that's just been rebuilt with no rehab. Think about that. That's craziness. But that's the kind of doctors that they use in that, and not just in our industry.
Sounds like the VA.
Well, you know, Stephen, and you mentioned that. I mean, and how has and we've been in a Republican state probably the last 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
How has that evolved? What have we lost in that time period?
And once again, we're a victim of our own success. We successfully negotiated contracts that led union workers to make really, really good wages. And with that, they moved away from where they grew up at. They forgot about their grandfathers and fathers that fought and battled to become unionized.
Thought they were white collar workers all of a sudden, huh?
And then all of a sudden they grew up. They're now living in these Leave It to Beaver neighborhoods, and thinking that I've done got to the top, right? I've arrived.
I've got mine. Go get yours.
That's it.
And I don't need that no more. We don't belong to that, and they don't stand up and fight for that. When I went out on strike in '83, and I was just I had 10 years service. I was 29 years old at the time, 28, and
Just tell him 18. He was 18.
I was 18.
That's a
I
good
was
age.
actually
A good age.
I was 18 when I hired on, to tell you the truth, and that was back in '73. And we went out on strike, and people would honk and wave and give you the sign and stop and bring you soft drinks or sandwiches and stuff like that. Well, we picketed a Verizon store over there by the Galleria, not because they're unionized, but because they were outsourcing a bunch of their jobs. They were about 800 or 900 people were about to lose their jobs because they were going to move them out of the country. So we said, you know what, we're not going to stand by and just let that happen. Even if they're not union workers, we're going to go picket. And we went and picketed one of their wireless stores, and people were passing by and honking and shooting the finger at us. And we were fighting for good American jobs. We were standing up not for ourselves, but for others. And
That's what happens when you take a position and it's not the popular position. You get shot at.
Yeah.
You know, you get bullets from
taken
every which
down.
way. I have to admit to our viewers that I'm a little biased because I'm a union member at heart. I used to belong to the Houston Federation of Teachers,
Yeah.
and I was a union steward. So I have strong union values. But we want to hear both sides on this television show. So let me play the other side, if you will.
Okay.
Now, what do you say to those folks that say, you know what, we are tired of people voting in straight ticket Democrats or Republicans, depending how they vote. We're tired of that. We want to see people elected to positions that are middle of the road, if you will, that can negotiate with both sides of the aisle. What do you say to those folks?
are you talking to me?
Any one of you.
Okay. Well, I say that you can't straddle an issue. You have to be either for it or against it. Say, for instance, since you indicated that you were with the teachers, when Governor Perry decided not to go into the rainy day fund to fund the teachers' contracts that were out, I had several nieces and nephews that had struggled very hard to go to school and become teachers. But because they became the last in, they were also the first out. And they were out of jobs, and strictly because the governor didn't want to go to the rainy day fund to fund those. And when I found out that teachers didn't pay into the benefits for unemployment, you know, I was just flabbergasted that we had been here that many years, and to see them go down. I come from a teaching family, you know. We come from those backgrounds. Those people worked hard to get those educations and everything, and then to have a set of people in office that will not give them the benefits that they are due when you are entrusting your children to them, you know, that's really absurd. And I found that to leave me with a very bad taste in my mouth for how that particular situation went down, especially with my governor, who we thought that he wouldn't take funds, he wouldn't do this, he wouldn't do that, yet and still you had plenty of good Republican, plenty of good Democrat, plenty of good everybody that suffered because of a decision made, and it was nonpartisan on that.
It was a big business decision.
You know, it was nonpartisan, you know.
I tell you, Ben, and I'll tell you, when was the last time you saw a Republican reach across the aisle? Come on, give me a break.
You're right.
Let me say this. I mean, the Republicans that are willing to compromise or find some consensus in decision making.
Oh, they're
and all
victimizing.
that.
They're shipped out.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
they chipped
Yeah.
them out. Look at the lieutenant governor's race. I mean, they took a guy that's so far to the right that it's unbelievable, because he was more conservative than and won't reach across the aisle and is demanding all kind of stuff. And I don't know what commercial to believe. I mean, both of them were saying they were crooks. This one was saying that one was a crook, and this one was saying that one was more of a crook. And now the one that lost saying, but I'm supporting him. You just said that he was a crook. Were you lying to me then, or are you lying to me now? And I believe both of them were crooks. They got me convinced, and that's why you need to support Leticia, because ain't no one calling her a crook.
You know what, Ben, and you know, we've been involved with NHPO for a lot of years, and you brought in David Dewhurst a couple years back to speak, and he bold-faced told us he was for Latino rights, Latino issues, and all this, and then right after.
Just so you know that it was a different organization, TAMAC, the chamber.
It was TAMAC, I'm sorry. It was TAMAC, and the chamber brought him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this man, David Dewhurst, sat there and told me he was for Latino issues, you know, for the thing that was gonna boost the Latino buying power. And then he turns around and he's what's he doing? He's fighting immigration reform. He's fighting immigrant issues. You know, bold-faced lied to us, Ben. He lied to us.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
You know, and how are we going to trust these guys? You know,
I think that they tell you what you want to hear,
Here,
Right.
when you want
and when it comes down to writing the bills or supporting the bills, it doesn't happen.
you know, and but on the same page, who was it that actually got them to say, "Hey guys, this is bad for business"? Was the big business owners? I think from Kroger, all the
They want the
big
cheap labor.
retailers. They said, "Hey guys, all these issues are bad for business," and that's when they finally backed off. That's when they finally backed off.
Right now, it's the Koch brothers controlling the Tea Party and that's controlling the Republican Party, and a lot of people don't know who the Koch brothers are, but they need to find out, and they need to see what they're doing, and it ain't got nothing to do with immigration reform or birth control or none of that. It really doesn't have anything at all to do. They want me fighting you, and they want us battling over, you know, schools and torque reform and all that other stuff. But what they really want is deregulation for their big businesses, so they can pollute the rivers and lakes and streams and bring in whoever
air,
they want.
everything.
Yeah, and bring in cheap labor from anywhere in the world. Look, engineers are being brought in by the loads. From these other countries, because they can get 3 or 4 engineers for the price of one. That I mean, really, I mean, someone that graduates from an engineering school now that owes $150,000, $200,000, he can't work for no $25,000 a year. How you pay your bills and live in a house? You got to make more than that. But they're bringing these people in. Hell, chances are we paid for their education, and they come over and they can work for 30 or 40,000, 30, 35,000 a year, and our engineers and we have some great young talent here, and they're black, white, and brown. They're all colors, and they're Catholic and they're Baptist and they're everything. But they grew up here, and they come from all ethnicities, right? We have Asians, we have everything here, and it's just shameful that that's why I'm asking America, wake up before it's too late. And yes, we need to elect people on both sides. I don't think everybody needs to be a Democrat and everybody needs to be a Republican, but we need to be able
Nobody
to
needs to be a Tea Party.
Yeah.
Let me get that straight right here, okay?
And to tell you the truth, it's really, they call them Tea Party, but it's libertarians. The Libertarian Party has taken over the Republican Party, and that's the Lyndon LaRouche people and all that. I mean, that's who invented the Libertarian Party. There might have been another guy before him, but they were fanatical then, and they're fanatical now. But I just don't understand how the Republicans, they just grabbed them and swallowed them up, and you know, it's bad, and it's getting worse. I mean, I'm really praying that they come out of it, because we did work together with them. The Democrats and the Republicans did work together. It has worked. It made the country what it is today. I don't think we can go way to the left or way to the right. I don't think. We need to be somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle.
Compromise.
And there's got to be able to be people to compromise and all that. And I know on Monday I'll be married 40 years. I married my high school sweetheart in '74. And believe me, if you're not willing to compromise, that ain't going to happen.
And that's another show. We'll talk about that next time.
Happy wife, happy life.
Let's talk about local races. As you know, there was a big mayor's race this past go around, and there's going to be even a bigger race in the next couple of years. Anise Parker, her last term is right now, so next year we're going to have, I would say, at least 6 or 7 candidates that are going to be full-fledged candidates, and it'd be interesting to see what happens. What are your thoughts on the local race?
Well, I mean, of course, not all the candidates have announced, and there's rumors all over the board.
I heard you're running.
But I moved to Humble, so they wouldn't let me run after.
So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I hope we have a mayor that looks out for the people more. I'm disappointed in this mayor. Not all people feel that way, but I'm disappointed in her. She has hurt the
working
communication workers
Yep.
for sure, and she's mistreated the firefighters. These are people that run into your house when
right.
when the fire is on,
And lights
and there
on
might be
fire.
kids in there or whatever. They go in there anyway. We had 4 that were killed going in to make sure someone wasn't in there. Luckily, no one else was in there. But I talked to one of the firefighters that witnessed he seen one of his co-firefighters in there actually standing in the middle of the flames as he burned, and even though he didn't die there, but he's suffering
Traumatized.
too.
Yeah.
He's traumatized. That's going to stick to him.
We have one last
Forever.
question from you, Javier. We got 2 minutes.
Well, ladies, I tell you, and I think Steve makes a really, really, really good point when he says, America, wake up. All the advances that our grandfathers, our forefathers fought for in labor when these unions were strong.
We're running out of time.
Hey, don't cut me off now. Don't cut me off now.
Yeah.
But we need to wake up.
Yeah.
They get to that level and they think they don't need that anymore, and they're all against it.
All right,
Man,
time's
we
up.
gotta get there.
Thank you for joining us here on Latino Talk TV. We will
Yes.
be here next week, live television, every Monday night, 6 p.m. in Houston's East
Hopefully,
End.
it won't cut me off.
We have great weather. Join us next
Thank
week.
you.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I wish I could get Abel Cisneros to come.